Yo, welcome back to the Man to Man podcast. I am James Howard. This is Raph Peters, man. We are here. We're back. We're live. Very excited about being back, man. I think we can both agree personally, man. It's been a little bit of a month. But we
It's
back.
been a journey. It's been a
We
journey.
here. We here and
We
man, we're
back.
continuing. We,
I'm
what
sorry.
was that? You want to sing?
That
I
was
mean, we
that
can do
little
that.
coffee that I had this morning. It was still a little left
A little
over.
kick. I got you, man. Cool,
Yeah.
man. So we are continuing in our series where we're going through the book the five love languages. I don't have my book, so you can pretend right here that it's here. And so, man, we're pretty excited about it. Been going through this for the last couple of streams, I think. So if you have missed any of those, if you're watching this on the replay, you can go back under the live tab if you're on YouTube, and you can go back and watch those things, man. Good conversation, good stuff happening, man. But before we get started, dude, man, how you been, man? You good? You good?
Man, July was crazy. Crazy. Especially for people that lived in Houston. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
not only got, hell outside because it's so hot.
Yep.
But you got power outages, you got hurricanes that's supposed to be tropical storms, that's category ones, that's acting like category fours that take you out of power for eight days. Ended up somehow in Austin on 50, not 50, but on a little bit of gas. So
Oof.
man, July was one, man. I'm glad that we have made it to August.
Yeah, man.
It's the birthday month, so I'm ready to get to the birthday on the 9th.
Okay. Got a birthday. My birthday month was last month. And so we enjoyed July 12th. If anybody wants to send
We didn't even
anything,
say happy birthday.
man, it's cool. So what we usually do, we usually have our summer camp, our youth summer camp. For most of y'all, you may know I'm a youth pastor, and it's for the last, I don't know how many years. It's always been during my birthday. And so it was cool, man. Celebrated with the students there. My wife, my daughter were there at camp with me, man. We just had a good time, man. So July, like I said, it was a busy month. A lot of good stuff going on, man. But like you said, man, August, we like in August. So we got some good stuff. We got another busy month. I don't know about you, but we got a busy month coming up. So
we got a lot of changes happening on my end. So it's a lot of work. So it just that's life, huh? It's just always busy. So I mean, it's always something.
Yeah, man.
But
so, dude, y'all had the power out for Lord knows how long in Houston. You had the new baby that's only like what, 3 months?
5
months.
5.
Okay,
That's crazy.
And so, and then you got 16 other kids in the house.
Little Rugrat. You might hear him today. So
and so you dealing with that with no air.
With
that was
no
man.
AC. Man, we had them portable fans. They died a couple of times because they were battery operated.
Yeah.
It was, I don't wish that on my worst enemy. Somebody was like, this is reminders of what Katrina was like. I said, nah, I don't think you lived through Katrina, but it is bad. It is bad. We ain't quite there, but as far as no power, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's something, man, when you get out of your comfort zone and you get thrown into spots like that, man.
That's a sermon right there, bro.
Shake up some stuff, man.
Yeah, you realize the creature comforts you had and the things that you really the things that you enjoyed that were grace from God, and it's like, Lord, I probably needed this moment, so I could love you more. So
praise God, man. Praise God. Cool. All right, man. So we're gonna jump right into it. For those of you, like I said, who don't know, we've been going through a series where we talk about the five love languages. And so, man, it's been a great book. It's something that we went through. My wife and I went through when we were going through premarital counseling, stuff like that. I'm trying to see if I can get my screen to show at least the title page. It ain't gonna do it, but let me see. Oh, so Gary Chapman is the author of the book. Let me see.
Shout out Gary.
I don't know if it's gonna let me show it, but we can try. Let's see if we can try. So y'all bear with me.
Happy birthday. I still got a birthday song. Give me.
Hey, feel it. You feel it?
Yeah.
Right.
Happy. How old did you turn, bro? You old? Yeah,
30,
here almost 40.
36, man. 36.
Okay,
So I'm leaning more towards 40 than not. But I'm not complaining, bro. I
Yeah.
mean, it is what it is. Every day is grace. Here it is, right
There
here.
we go.
It's grace covered
That's
in
the old
grace.
cover right there.
This is the old cover, man. I don't found like I think this is the new old cover. So it's like the
The new
second
old one.
edition or something like that.
Yeah,
Stuff
that
like
cover.
that. So this is the book right here. By the way, if you're watching this on a replay, if you're watching it live and you're on YouTube, we now have a link to the Amazon book. So you can get the digital copy, you can get the physical copy, man. And so you go there. It helps the channel out because we get a little kickback from that, man. It helps us to help continue to help me and honor God in every single part of their lives. So if you don't have the book, you want to, man, you want to help us out, man, go ahead and
get
grab
the book
that
for
book
somebody
today.
else. I mean,
get it for somebody else, man.
If you're watching this and you already got it, just go ahead and click the link. Get it for 2 or 3 family members and friends.
Clip. There you go, right there, man.
We just call it a day. I mean, if 40 people do that, 43 people, we good.
Yeah, we can actually maybe buy some lunch or something. Maybe, I don't know. Ooh,
come on.
All right, man. So let's jump right into it. Last time we talked about ooh, my notes. We talked about last time
words of affirmation.
We talked about words of affirmation, and this time we're going to be talking about quality time, the love language that that your wife, or maybe even if you're watching this, ladies, your husband may want. It's time with you. Man, one thing as we were reading through this chapter, as I was reading through it this week, man, one of the things that they point out is the difference between like going out to eat and seeing the difference between dating couples and married couples. And he said, sadly, you'll see the dating couples, they're engaged, they're trying to get to know each other, they're trying to talk to each other, but then you can always, he says in the book, you can always tell the married couples because they're the ones just kind of sitting there, kind of wandering, looking around the restaurant, just kind of just there to eat and just, like, okay, yeah, I'm just here. But he challenges us as we read through this chapter to make sure that time is a fully engaged time where you're truly with your husband, you're truly with your wife, and you're there with them. All distractions, we're gonna talk more details later. All distractions gone, and you're just there with them, man. And I know in my life, man, when my wife and I have taken the time to actually spend quality time together, it makes a world of a difference, man, because it opens up conversation, it opens up intimacy, not even necessarily getting to what, but it just opens up that connection, man, that just only comes from spending that time with each other, man. So it's pretty good. So what about you, man, before we dive into all the details of this, man? How have you seen quality time valuable in y'all's marriage?
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that my wife desires, and it's part of her love language. And we were just talking about this the other day. And as I was going back and reading the chapter, because read this a long time ago, and I think my wife has read this, a lot of premarital, just counseling sessions involved reading this book and knowing love languages and stuff like that. I was like, man, I thought I knew what quality time was, but as you read the chapter, you start realizing some things about quality time, and he makes it pretty clear. It's this, not this. And what I thought was quality time was really just proximity. And so, going through it's just like, so, I mean, if we could just say this again, because we say this every time on the pod, we are not experts.
Nope.
We are definitely just like you, taking it in and trying to apply to our lives. And that's what this chapter was. I mean, it's just a lot of like, oh yeah, I can work on that. Oh yeah, I don't do that well. But this is definitely something that my wife definitely desires and wants, and it's part of her love language. So if I don't want to be like Patrick, who you'll read in the book,
in the chapter,
I definitely should definitely utilize some of the advice and wisdom given by Bishop Chapman for sure.
Yeah, man. As I was reading through this, man, it was just reminded me of things that I would say you get comfortable after multiple years of marriage. You kind of get away from. And so just stuff is simply, and like I said, we'll talk more details here in a second, but you get away from like the small details of like looking them in the eye when they're talking, putting your phone away, turning off the TV and like stuff like that. And it just re-challenged me to just be more intentional, man. We
more
going
present.
on 14 years in this thing, 15 plus together, and it's just like, man, like our conversations have been good over the years, but it's like, okay, cool, I need to remember that when I'm there
Yeah.
with her, that I'm there with her, that I'm looking and I'm engaging and looking at her, put my phone down and stuff like that, man, and really spending that time with her. So it's really, really pretty cool. And that's one of the first things to talk about is just that focused attention. And I think you said something that was important, man. It's not just about proximity. Like
Yeah.
you'll go in the living room, you'll sit down and y'all watch TV, and y'all been sitting together for 2 hours watching your favorite show, but you ain't been together, right? You just been close to each other, but no interaction with each other has happened, man.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's one of the main things in the chapter that
That's
I was
funny,
just like,
bro.
"Woo."
Yeah,
Yeah.
that hit. It definitely hit because what's funny was the other day before I reviewed the chapter, we're watching, and I'm in it, and so here's the other thing too that I think needs to be talked about that, like
Yeah.
not just proximity, but also not saying, hey, I am going to spend this bit of time with you just to get to the next thing. Like the time is just the time. And so what
Right.
the other day we were watching the show, and also I'm just saying to her, like, hey, this hour is yours. All while in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna go hang out outside, have my alone time after this. I'm trying to get to that. And so like I'm trying to be extra, doing the most, trying to look at her in her eyes and just try to get the most out of her. And she's looking like, what are you doing? Like, this is not. And I'm like, this ain't what you wanted. This is quality time. She's like, no, this is not. You can go ahead and go outside. And I'm just like, oh man. So that reality of like, man, not just being in the same space for a specific amount of time, but just saying like, this space, this time is yours. Nothing else is on the agenda. Not not after this. I don't want you to feel like this is rushed. And I think there was a lot of that the other day. And so I'm reading, I'm feeling all kinds of conviction. I'm talking to her this morning about it and, laughing because I'm just like, gosh, I got a long way to go. I mean, we've been married. We just celebrated 9 years, July 25th. Been together 13 years. And, it's something I also wanted to say, bro, because I know we ain't quite went into it, but I think the chapter really speaks to this idea of never losing this idea of like wonder and discovery, like with your like to discover something like new from your spouse, or just to have that like when you talked about that example of the two couples, you got the married couple and the dating couple in a restaurant. The dating couple, there's still something about you that I want to learn. There's still something that I want to know, that I think, like you said, familiarity. I mean, it'll not only kill something in your relationship with the Lord, but in your relationship to others. And geez, bro, we do this every time. I feel like it's so much there. Maybe the familiarity, the reason why your relationship is dry with your spouse is because your relationship is dry with the Lord. The two coincide.
Watch your toes, y'all.
Hey, the vertical and the horizontal, they connect. And so we can usually tell a lot about where we are in relation to our relationship with our spouse, just by looking at where we are in our relationship with the Lord. And when we lose that reality of trying to learn more about God, and we feel like we've gotten to a point where we know everything, it stifles your relationship with him and you do not grow. And so I think that could be very revealing for a lot of you. Hey, maybe you should check your spirit, check where you're at.
Check it, man.
Might be saying something. I don't know. I'm sorry. I know we
always going to tie back into that, man. That's what we can always hit that, man. Everything that we talk about in this podcast leads back to your relationship with God, man. That's the source. That's the foundation. That's the well of just the fountain of just where everything should flow from, man. Man, you said one thing that reminded me of something, man. Happens probably about a couple months ago, and I may have shared it on the podcast when it happened. but the idea of learning more about your spouse. So my wife and I, man, everyone, like every blue moon, man, we'll sit down and we'll talk about like just the past. And I think we were just talking about past relationships. So I'm pretty sure it was during the time we talked about past relationships.
Yep.
And it was just a funny story that she told. And I was like, babe, like, you ain't never told that story before. I said, I've never heard you tell that story. She's like, for real? And I was like, no. I said, that was hilarious. I would have remembered that. And it opened, you know, it was kind of like when you play video games, it unlocks the new level, it unlocks this different area on the map or whatever. And that's kind of how it was, man. So like, it's like that particular instance now is linked in my brain to that conversation. So every time I think about something around that subject, I think about, oh man, that was funny that night. We was up to 1 o'clock just talking about just silly stuff and just being silly, man. Talk about being in high school, being in middle school, and stuff like that, man. And so that kind of stuff only happens when you have that not only that proximity, but when you have that focused attention, man.
That undivided
attention. And that's tough. That's tough, man, because I was last night, you know, I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off. Last night,
you good. You good. Go ahead.
Last night, man, we'll get home, get settled, baby girl's in the bed, she sleep. I'm going towards the back, and I was gonna get ready to work on stuff for today, right? And so I come around and I see that my phone is on the kitchen table. And so I was on my way back to the living room to just sit with her. Like, I didn't really have anything in particular that I want to talk to, but we hadn't talked all day, right? And so we sit down, and basically she was like, yeah, you made the right decision, buddy. We ain't talked all day. You better come sit down and talk to me. And so an intentional thing after reading this chapter is I left my phone in the kitchen, right on the kitchen table, because I'll just, any lull in the conversation, I'm tempted to just pick up my phone and just, like, I ain't even looking for nothing, right? Just to be like, you know, oh man, and then it ended up being one of them, like, you know, one of them. Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah,
not that's crazy.
Nah, yeah, for real.
Number one indicator.
That's crazy, right? And it turns into that. And so I put my phone down. I left it in there, and I just honestly forgot that we had it, man. And man, I talked and I talked and I talked, and we had this conversation, and I had a lot on my heart. You know, I didn't have to go to work today, but she had to go to work today, so I was like, maybe I should have like talk less, you know. But it was a conversation that we had, man, and it tied into like some things that I was passionate about, some things I had on my heart for the last week, and it was important for me. Like I felt that, right? I felt like, hey, I need to as a man, I wanted to share my heart about the certain situation. We'll talk about that towards the end, maybe, if we get to that, about learning how to talk and share your feelings, fellas. So yeah, man. So you said that you focus a little bit more on the first part of the chapter than I did, and I focus more on the little middle part. So what from the first part of that chapter did you want to talk about?
I mean,
right now.
Well, maybe not necessarily like in a specific order, but just as far as like my mind and how I think. I think one of the things that it talked about was what makes one person feel emotionally loved doesn't always make the other feel emotionally loved.
Right.
And that is a hard reality to like come to grips with as a man, because you think I'm doing all the things that I think should work as far as making you feel loved and appreciated. I'm working this job. I'm working. I'm making this money. I'm paying these bills. I'm out in this hot sun, mowing the yard. You know, I'm doing all the things that surely should be enough. And it's just, as a pastor, you hear so many people use these things as reasons why their spouse or their wife should feel loved. And you're like, well, what does she need? Not what do you want to give her or what your upbringing showed you? Because that's a problem too. Too many guys be like, well, my mom and daddy showed me this. And I think that is important, like, for your spouse to know, like, this is how they view marriage. This is how they view the relationship. This is how they view loving each other. But I think that that's stuff that we've got to work through. Like, your wife is not your mom. And so
Right.
don't think that because she was okay with being a stay-at-home mom, doing everything at the house, not sharing responsibilities at the house,
Right.
that your wife wants to do that.
Mm.
Or that you doing all these things for your wife or to provide for the family, that's bringing in this sense of love. Like, no, Joker, she want to spend time with you.
Right.
And I think quality time is big for a lot of women, maybe not all women, but I think that's something that guys tend to not do well, because we tend to have all of these different distractions, different things going on, kind of to your point, where, you know, it's just like, man, you know, we wasting time. Why are we looking at each other in the eye? You know, why am I, you know,
That's
we
weird,
got
bro.
10 other things we could be doing right now. I
Right.
could be watching the game right now. And
Right.
sometimes you try to watch the game, and he talks about this. You can't spend time with your wife and you can't have quality time.
Nah.
Your attention is divided, if we honest. Now that might be
Yeah.
something that you like to do, but it's not. It's togetherness. It's
Right.
what we doing together, not
Nah.
you know what you're doing. And I think that was kind of hard for me to understand, if I'm honest, as I was reading through, like just trying to, like, what does that actually look like? Like, because you know, I'm like, proximity is important, but so you're saying, like, if my wife likes watching a movie that we can't, like, it's not quality time if we watch a movie, then I think it's the intention and the focus that's really important. And so figuring that
Yeah.
out, and this aspect of, hey, we're doing this together and we're able to focus on one another. And
Right.
sometimes you have things that kind of keep you, if we're honest, from doing that. So I think that was really one of the things that really stuck for me. And I don't know. Tell me how you feel about this, because there was something, I don't know if it was necessarily on the front end of the chapter, but it was something that I thought about as we were talking. And it's
Yeah.
this whole idea of our upbringing. He
Mm.
tells a story about a guy. I can't remember. I don't think it was Patrick. It was somebody else.
Yeah.
And
They talked about another guy. Yeah.
this other guy, I guess at the end of the day, realized, you know, what his wife needed. It might have been the story from last chapter that came into this chapter, maybe.
Okay.
So the thought was like, I guess his wife, whenever she gave him words of affirmation, that's right. It
Yep.
was a story before.
Yep.
He would like, it would do something to him, and it like came from his childhood.
Right.
You know, and he realized, like, when he was a child, like how he used to like appreciate, and it just kind of fell into his marriage. There is something about, like, how we're shaped as children that speak to our love language. Either it's something, usually it's something that we didn't get as children, but
Right.
maybe it's also something that we did get that made us really feel appreciated and valued, that we need from our spouses. So, like, the thought process in my mind is like, man, we've got to go through the work of, like, realizing how our spouses were brought up and what made them feel loved or not loved as a child, because that will speak a lot to where they are now. And I just think
Right.
about it in my life. Like, you know, my parents were great. And I think every parent will realize this. You're not going to be perfect. And there are going to be ways that, you know, your children are going to have to work through things that you didn't bring because you're broken. You're sinful. So all of those realities are stuff that we got to work through. But all that to say, there were some things that, you know, I'm like, dang, like, I wish I would have felt this as a kid, or I felt loved whenever I did something and was appreciated for it. Like, when I worked hard and my parents was like, hey, look, we see you, or I did something on the football field. That's what made me feel validated. So my works had a lot, you know, and you praising me for what I did had a lot to do with how I felt. And so now that I'm in this marriage, I need my wife to do the same. So when I take the trash out, I want to be praised for that work. I don't want it to be just like a simple, like, you should have did that. You know what I
Right.
mean?
That's what you're supposed to do. What you
supposed to
mean?
do.
That's what you're
And
supposed to do.
And that is true, you know,
Yeah.
but I think that when we do the investigation, and it's part of that, like, hey, I'm going to learn something about you, that aspect of discovery that we cannot lose in marriage, because these are things that are like vital tools to help us
Yeah.
navigate and grow and to be healthy. And
Yeah.
so, you know, my wife knows that. You know, she knows I have this short man complex that I've always had to try to, you know, show that, you know, I'm actually capable despite my size. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's why I play football, because I'm trying to show jokers, like, hey, I don't care, you know, how crazy it get out here. I'm willing to give my body up. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I can do it better than the other guy.
Yeah.
But that's how I felt love. So all that to say, I'm sorry. All that to say, when I was reading that, it was just like, oh man, like there's a lot of work that goes into loving your spouse.
Yeah.
And it's not just work that you can do in that. It's not just where your spouse is today. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Hmm.
It's not where your spouse just is today, but it's also all the things that have shaped your spouse to where they are. So it should help you in how you engage and love your spouse. Like understanding your spouse's love language is not just understanding where your spouse is right now, but also where they come from. So all that to say, those were some things, initial things that kind of stood out to me that I thought was really good. What do you think about that, bro?
Yeah, man. I think too. For that same story they were talking about is the main thing they emphasize is that the husband's love language was words of affirmation, but
Mm-hmm.
the wife's love language was quality time.
Yeah.
And Dr. Chapman was talking about how he gave the formula, like words of affirmation. Y'all both just need to affirm each other. And so things went well for the husband, but the woman, the wife, she was like, yeah, like he still doesn't spend time with me. And in the story, you'll read this when you purchase the book, that the woman was like, the wife was just like, yeah, I get that he makes a lot of money. I get that we live in a nice house and we have nice things, but he doesn't spend any time with us. And so in the story, he says that he challenged the husband and he asked him questions. He was like, yo, like, I understand that you're doing well and you worked your way up and you worked hard to get where you are. And so the guy was just like, man, I worked so hard. I'm about to be, VP, and I'm working for this or whatever position he was going for. And Dr. Chapman asked him, he was like, do you want to be in that position and be alone?
Yeah.
No wife, no kids. He was like, well, of course not, man. He's like, I'm doing this for my family. That's the goal. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And he said, man, if you don't change the fact that you don't spend enough quality time with your wife, then you're going to succeed in your career, but be alone.
Be alone.
And he was like, you are a smart man.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't be where you are if you weren't smart. And he was like, I'm pretty sure you can figure out how to work around schedules and deadlines and all that kind of stuff to spend time with your wife, to go on vacation with your family, to go on date nights, to sit at the house and play catch with your boys, to sit at the house and just have a conversation with your wife. He was like, that's what your wife wants. And the story ends like, with them trying new things. All the kids are gone out of the house now. And at this point of their life, at the time of writing that book, that couple was basically saying that these years where it's just them as empty nesters are the best years they have ever had because they focus on each other's love languages, right? But that could be the opposite if he would have never made that shift in his mind to say, okay, cool, I'm going to spend this time with her. I might not necessarily like everything she does and, whatever, but I understand that, hey, this time is important to her. And so I should make it important for me to spend that time with her, man.
There's so much there, bro. There's so much
Yeah.
there. Because I think one of the things that I was thinking through was he made it to the top. He just made it to the top in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think to love in that way is costly. Like Dr. Chapman says, where will you find the time? You'll make it.
Yeah, you'll make it.
And what that ended up leading this brother to do was he ended up starting his own business. And I think that sometimes what happens is like we're so fixated with some of these goals that we don't see how, there could be shifts and changes, but still the ultimate goal, like you still receive the ultimate goal and the ultimate prize. And it's a lot better than what you first initially thought. Like he thought, man, I got to get to the top in this way with this business. And really it was like, hey, you need to actually make more time for your spouse and for your family. And then that leads to you realizing, oh, well, this business might not work. I might need to start my own thing so that I can still have the opportunity to spend with my I'm going to sacrifice this in order for something better. And the outcome is better than what I could have imagined. And I think sometimes, when we choose to to love our spouses and live into their love language and make these costly sacrifices, that it leads us to changing our priorities and ultimately can lead us to different places in life. Like, I
Right.
wonder, man, and I think about this often as a pastor, when the if the day ever comes, right? Because today would tell you I want to pastor for as long as I can, until I need to get out of the pulpit and give it to somebody else. I want to pastor, but I've seen so many pastors, unfortunately, lose their families,
Yeah.
lose their mental health, like their minds and stuff like that, because they put so much in it, that it cost them all of those things. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's not worth it. It's
Right.
like, hey, when you see yourself or you find yourself in that moment of like needing a change, make the change. The change will be worth it. And I think that story is just like, encouraging, because it's like, okay, if I ever got to that place, I shouldn't necessarily fear the unknown. But maybe if I live into this, and if it's definitely so that I can love my spouse,
Mhm.
let me really live into this and see how the Lord is going to make this a lot better than what I initially thought. Because
Right.
I'm not a pastor, I'm a son, and I'm not just a son, I'm a husband, and I'm all of these things before I'm a pastor. And
Mm.
so I'm a father, all these things. And so let me not organize this in a way where I put pastoring above my family and my relationship with the Lord. That's
Right.
going to always breed destruction.
Mhm.
Let me put the first thing first, and then allow everything to flow from that. And I think that, yeah, that's the work needed. Those are the things those realities that you need to live into. Like, hey, brother, if you're watching this, it's going to be okay. Like, as you think about the things that you have to give up so that you can love your spouse, let me tell you, it's going to be okay. And guess what? It's actually going to be better than what you could have thought or imagined. So
Right.
go ahead, make those needed sacrifices. You may not make as much as you could make today,
Right.
but the value of what you're investing in will bring forth a return greater than the money that you're trying to get in your current job.
Right.
Don't hear it
So,
from me, hear it from Dr. Chapman.
yeah,
It's
man.
it's there.
That's awesome, man. And so, man, just shifting a little bit, man. Let's dive into a little bit more of this chapter. Like I said, we're not going to get through this whole chapter. It's going to be a part 2 of this part 3, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And so, let's talk about quality conversations. It's one of the main. He breaks it down. He got the overall quality time, and then he breaks it down into different dialects. Is what he calls it. So one of
Man.
the first 2 dialects, but the main one we're gonna focus on now, is quality conversations. And it says that a quality conversation is made up of maintaining eye contact. This is very practical, fellas. So tune in, listen
Please
up.
do.
If you don't have the book yet, write down these notes. So quality conversations are made up of keeping eye contact, maintaining eye contact, undivided attention. We talked about that a little bit. Put that phone away, turn that TV off. Listening for feelings, right? Not just listening for words, not just hearing words, but listening for feelings. And then observing body language, man. Like, how is she
Ooh.
posturing herself, man? What's kind of going on there? Because a lot of times, man, that speaks louder than words. And then refusing to interrupt is the last one right there, man. And I would say that's probably like the hardest for me is
Refusing to
refusing not
interrupt.
to not to interrupt, man. So out of those 5, man, let's kind of go through them. Maintaining eye contact, undivided attention, listening for feelings, observing body language, refusing to interrupt, man. Which one would you say is probably the most challenging for you when it comes to, or I can talk about what's most challenging for me. I don't know if
Yeah, I don't
we
mind
tip for
talking
tat.
about
Yeah.
what's most challenging. Maintaining eye contact is not, because I was doing that too much the other day.
It just got weird.
It just got weird. It's just like, okay, you ain't got to
Stop.
do all of that. You looking weird. Why are you acting like that? Refusing to interrupt. That definitely, if I looked first to last, that's definitely a hard one too, because I think I'm always trying to defend myself. Sometimes it's like, hey,
Mhm.
I instead of just listening, like, hey, there's something that you're saying. So I definitely would say that. Don't listen to your spouse and do something. Because sometimes that's just like I hadn't listened at all.
Right.
I'm just trying to fix the problem.
Right.
And I think I can be a fixer. I'm really good about body language and like discerning. Like, hey, your countenance changed. Like,
Hey,
that's why you act. What's going on? So
what's going on?
I'm really good for that. Listening for feelings. I think I want that more than I give. You know, I
Yeah.
like want you to kind of hear me and feel what I'm saying. And sometimes it's like, nah, like, sure, like everything that you're saying might be true, but that still hurt. You
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I think that's what I think I'm similar, bro. I think,
Yeah.
interrupting is hard for me because I'm just a natural person that wants to be heard. And
Right.
therefore, I'm speaking up a lot. And then also just not even really listening, but trying to do whatever I think is helpful.
Right.
And like that's problematic too.
Yeah, I think just going out of order, man, refusing to interrupt. I think what happens, even when you're in a good conversation, like where y'all are, it's where it's not an argument, right? Y'all just talking, just having a conversation about stuff, man. I know for me, like I'll get excited about an idea that I got based off of something that she said. And so I want to talk about it, right? Like, even though you're in the middle of your conversation and you finishing
Yeah.
your thought, you're like, oh, that remind me. And so it kind of mess up the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And so refusing to interrupt, I would say it's tough for me because I'll just forget what I have to say, man. There's been plenty of stuff when we sitting here on the podcast and I'm letting you talk and I'm thinking about this and then I just forget what it is. You got to write it down or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but refusing to interrupt, I think what that does is that it creates an atmosphere of, man, they really are listening, right? They really want to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
I know I don't like being interrupted, just for the simple fact that it just throws me off, right? It throws me off of what I want to say. And if I am passionate enough to sit here and have a conversation with my wife, then I really want to talk about what I want to talk about. And my wife does a good job of just sitting there and just listening, man. Because once I get the rolling, And she probably sometimes be like, "Ooh, Lord Jesus, all right, okay, all right, right." But yeah, man, just making sure that I refuse to interrupt because I get really excited.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, you want to let them get their thoughts out, get their feelings out. I think in the chapter it talks about the guy Patrick in the story who just wanted to just cut off his wife and just ask her. He was trying to solve the problem, right? And so she came home talking about a whole bunch of stuff from work. And he was like, well, this is what you need to do. You need to do this, this, and that. So every time she came home talking about what she was talking about, he was like, well, did you do what I told you to do? Well, okay. And it eventually got to the point in that conversation where he told him, like straight up in this chapter, you can go read it when you purchase the book. And he told her, look, I don't want to hear anything else about work if you ain't done nothing what I told you to do. If you haven't done anything I told you to do. And he was just like, I know. And so she was like, man, work was crazy today. He's like, I don't want to hear it. He's like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it at all. And in the chapter, homeboy is on the he's in the midst of getting divorced, or his wife had just left, and he's like, dude, I was so stupid, I was so dumb to just sit there. And he realized, man, all my wife wanted me to do is just to listen. That's all she wanted me. She didn't want me to provide a solution. She wanted to come home, she wanted to fuss, and she wanted to get that frustration off of her that had built up all day. Because if she did that at work, she was gonna get fired. Right. And so he was just like, man. So I think part of that as men is we want to create a solution, man. We want to fix it. We want to make sure the problem is right. And so, of course, the temptation is to be like, well, you can do this, this, and that. And I personally have had to learn that over the years. My wife told me, she was like, look, I don't want an answer from you. Yeah. She said, I just want you to listen. And if she does want to answer, she asks. Then she says, what do you think about this? What do you think I need to do? Most of the time, that's not how the conversation goes. She's not asking for a solution. She just wants to talk. Yeah. And if I feel like there's a point or a time for us to talk about solutions and to, whatever the situation is, then we do that. But I've learned to just be like, yo, I'm gonna just listen. I'm listening real good.
Yeah. Ain't nothing to be said.
That's all I need to do.
listening ears on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know it's interesting, bro, because I think, man, there's just so much there that's hard to bring out just in this short little time. But I think, you know, it's one thing to want to be heard, and then it's another thing to actually place yourself in the same position to hear others. It's
Mm.
like, man, I want people to spend time hearing all my baggage, things that I'm navigating with, hardships that I'm having. But because I'm a fixer, I can't just always like do that for other people. And so it's like, man, nah, like we gotta we gotta give people the same thing that we want from others. And I think for married couples, there's a reality of studying your spouse to even know like this moment is a moment where she doesn't want me to fix it. Like she just wants me to listen. And I think if I know my spouse well enough, I know those moments. Like she ain't even got to say it. Like I just know, like, oh, she's trying to just share how stressful her day was. She hadn't had, like, my wife told me all the time, like it's always kind of like, oh, she's like, you're my closest friend. That you're and what she's really saying, she's going back to those marital vows where it's like, hey, for better or for worse, like you see the good and you see the bad and you still love me and pursue me. And it
Right.
doesn't matter how I show up. You're still gonna
Right.
love me and pursue me.
Right.
This dynamic to this relationship is not going to change because that is real, because that's true. You're the only person that I really can share this with in this moment like this. And so I really just need you to hear what's happened. I don't need you to fix it. I've got friends that I can call up and get advice from. And maybe the Lord uses you, but in this moment, I need my husband, you know,
Mm.
to just love me in all of my mess and to hear the things that are going on. And for me to just know I'm loved and I'm known. Like I could just share
Right.
who I am. And that's that's the heartbeat of the gospel, Bishop. That's the heartbeat of the gospel that we are known and loved by God no
Yeah.
matter what we do. And there is something that he's done for us that allows this relationship to grow. And I think that that's what we need from our spouses. Um,
That's good.
yeah, bro. I mean, and this is the thing about quality conversations. Quality conversations is it's about being heard, but it's also focusing on drawing out from the other understanding, feeling, thoughts, emotions. Like when
Right.
we do that well, we begin to learn and bring out all of those things that might not be seen just on the front end. But
Mm.
as they're talking, as we're listening, what we're starting to see is, oh, like that's what you're feeling, or oh, like that's what you're thinking, or I get it now. It's what
Right. Right. Right.
we don't get. And our boy Pat, unfortunately, he learned that too late.
Alert.
Brother, if you watching, let Pat be the example of what not to do.
Yeah, man.
Man, I found myself a couple of times telling my wife, I don't want to hear that. And that never brought us closer together.
No.
Never do it. I don't care. And it was always tied to me trying to fix her.
Right.
Funny that the connection is there because I mean now it's just like an aha moment for me right now.
Right. Right. Right.
Wow, like I was in those moments when I didn't want to hear any, when I was fed up and I was done. It was because I wanted it to be fixed, and I knew in that moment it would not get fixed, and I couldn't fix it. And so
Right.
it's like there's something built up in me that just wants this to end. Because what do you want me to do with this? Nothing. I want you to take it in. I want you to care for me by listening to me right now. Wow, that man, you talking about brownie points?
Boy.
Brownie points is all up in that thing. Just listening. Just
All
hey,
up in there, man. Just
hey,
listen, man.
just stop
And I think,
acting and listen. Yeah.
man, I think too, man. I want to talk about listening to feelings, and I want to transition to how we as men can
Mm.
be better communicators, right? When we're having this quality time, how can we talk better? So listening for feelings, it's it's another level of that conversation, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm not just sitting there listening to gripes and complaints, right? So we can't have that kind of attitude. It's like, oh man, she just complaining, whatever. No, like, what's your wife trying to say, bro? Like, she may be like really hurting right now,
Yeah.
right? She may not be saying like, I'm really frustrated, I'm really tired, or I really am overwhelmed or whatever. She may not be saying those things. She might be, you know, women are way better communicators with their feelings than we are. But as men, like, we need to be listening for that, man. It's like, man, if my wife is feeling insecure, if my wife is not feeling comfortable or not feeling safe, like, those are things that we need to have like our antennas up and be like, okay, cool. She may not say that like that, but if my wife isn't feeling comfortable because of XYZ, what is it, first of all, that I can do as a leader of the house to make her more comfortable, to make her feel more secure, to make her feel more loved, to make her feel more XYZ, right? And so, fellas, it's like a cheat code, right? If we're listening for this, man, our wives are telling us stuff, right? There, some of them are more blatant about what they feel and what they want than others. But like, if we're listening, man, that could unlock so much in our marriages, in our relationships, in our understanding of our wives. If we just listen to those feelings, man. And like I said, man, like, our wives are saying a lot more than what they're saying. Right. When it talks about the feelings, it talks about observing body language, all that. So if your wife clenches up every time she starts talking about work, or every time y'all start talking about money, or every time y'all start talking about, you know, discipline issues with the kids, or every time she talk about the mother-in-law, your mama, or whatever, like, observe those things, man. And then it can lead into some significant conversations, I think, that can help maybe solve some issues or solve some things that are unspoken within the relationship or within the marriage, man. I really think so.
Man, we probably have hit on this a few times, but I just want to go ahead and put it out there just to make it clear for the listeners, for the viewers, for the people watching, whether it's the replay or not. But in order to have quality time, you have to create the space for it. It doesn't just happen.
Right.
It's not just something that magically appears in your calendar or in your weekly schedule. You have to go and do the work ahead of time to say, hey, I am creating this space for you. And I don't care what's going on, the world stops and it's going to revolve around you in this moment. And so
right,
you have to put in the work to make that happen. You got to make the time, as Dr. Chapman told brother. He was like, you got to make it. You know, hey, I know it may seem hard. I know it may seem impossible, but if this is really something that means a lot to you, then you're going to make that sacrifice. And so I think when you think about your week, at what points in your week do you have space committed to actually having intimate quality time with your spouse where they feel known and loved, where you're able to actually listen, not just get off all the things that are happening in your life, but also listen to what's going on and the things that's revolving around your spouse. Like, you've got to do that, and it's just not going to happen as you just kind of look at time and hope things come together. You got to work. And so there's no way around it. We hadn't said that.
Yeah, man, we didn't. And I'm glad you brought that up, man, because here's the thing. In our lives, something's always going to be sacrificed. Oh. Something's always going to be sacrificed, right? If you want to be developed in any area of your life, something else is going to have to die, right? So, for instance, for me, man, I want to lose weight. I want to do this, and I'm just going back and forth with this whole journey that I'm on. But I know the principles, right? I know what has to die. Eating unnecessary food, eating sweets, and I need to get to the gym. All that stuff works together. So what's going to be sacrificed? Maybe staying up late at night gets sacrificed. Maybe eating that extra scoop of ice cream gets sacrificed. And maybe whatever that has to die in order for me to get where I want to get. And in your life, whatever it is, especially in your marriage, if you want your marriage, if you want your family, your relationship with your kids to be developed and to grow into something that is amazing and beautiful and wonderful, something else is going to have to die, right?
Yeah.
It may be your me time. Yes, you need your me time, but do you need that much me time? Do you really? Right? It may be talking to your boss and be like, yo, man, I can't be working all these extra hours, right? Like, I understand that, you know, y'all may need the money or whatever, but like, I can't just work these extra hours, or I can't be taking my work home, or whatever the case may be. it's some things that you're just gonna have to sacrifice. And that's the thing about like trying to find time. You ain't gonna find it, right? You gotta make it, you gotta carve it out and say, like, hey, every other Friday or every Thursday night, like we're gonna go on a date. The kids are gonna go to the grandparents' house. I don't care what's going on, this is gonna happen. Carve that time out and make sure that you're doing that, man. It's something else. My battery done died, y'all. God bless you. Hold on 1 second. We're gonna go to you. So I know y'all can hear me, but yeah, we talked about sacrificing time, sacrificing things as I work on this thing right here.
The battery. I mean, we at the end, but I think that
we at the end. That's what I'm trying to say. It was plugged up and everything. Lord bless it.
The crazy part is that there is, I got my dog in the office right now, and she going in. Yeah, y'all look past the background and everything happening. Yeah, the unnecessary things. What are the unnecessary things that are happening that you can take out? I think that was really good, bro. Like when you started talking about the sugars and all the things that, ultimately you realize, hey, if I'm gonna be fit and healthy, there are these things that are toxic. There are these sugars and other things that are killing me. And I think there are these unnecessary things in our life that are killing our marriages that we need to take out if we're going to be healthy and whole. And so, man, such a needed conversation as we talk about, quality time. The quality time doesn't happen just by happenstance. Quality time happens as you take out the things that are not quality and focus on the things that are. So if you're watching today and you're saying, hey, I want to spend more time with my wife or with my spouse because this is their love language, then I'm telling you the only way that you can make that happen is by making the sacrifices, taking out the needed things, and focusing in there. James, are you back? Still not back on me?
I think we back, man. We just do the FaceTime camera. It ain't as nice as fancy, but it is what it is, man. All right. But yeah, man, what you said, I think that's great. Like you said, taking away the things that are not necessarily edifying the marriage is what we have to look at, man. For the last few minutes, fellas, let's talk about it, man. Let's talk about how we talk, right? Let's talk about how we communicate. In the chapter, it talks about how as men, a lot of times we communicate our words, but we don't really do well at communicating our feelings, right? Like most wives want to know like how we feel as the man of the house. And like I said, especially as the men, we want to come off as tough, as rugged and secure, and we don't want our wives to see the weakness in us. But it's never came back to bite me or hurt me to be just transparent and just completely open with my wife about how I feel, right? If I'm feeling scared about some financial issues that we may be having, if I'm feeling nervous about maybe some health stuff that's going on, if I'm feeling angry or mad about a situation at work or with other family members or whatever it is, like it's good to talk about that, man, because a lot of times you'll find out that, hey, maybe my wife is feeling some of the same stuff, or maybe my wife felt some of the same things and she's processed through it, right? And worked her way through it. And I'm just sitting over here still struggling. And so tell me just real quick, man, like tell me about times in your life, or even if you don't have like, perfect examples where you've seen you expressing your feelings has actually benefited the marriage in a positive way.
Yeah, I think one of the main things is that's always kind of been a struggle, because my wife is like, why are you acting this way? And there have been times where I'm like, I don't know why I'm acting this way, actually. When I think about it, I'm like, there's something going on. And so it's still taking time for me to really realize, like, you know, and I think it takes moments for me at least. And I'm sorry, my camera is zooming out like that,
I
but
said both of our cameras just tripping, bruh.
tripping.
The, don't let
Anytime
the
I
devil.
move, it's zooming in and out. But I think that it's caused me to have to stop and take inventory of what's happening inside. Stop
Mm.
outside, and I'm sometimes so busy. And again, this busyness aspect is going to kill a lot. Where I'm going so hard that I'm not really taking time to really assess where I am and how I feel in that moment. And so whenever me and my wife talk, the thing that's really been helpful is being like being honest in the moment of saying like I don't know how I feel right now,
Right.
and I need some time to actually consider. The way that I'm actually gonna know what's happening on the inside is listening to some of the things that you're saying. Like you're saying that I'm angry right now. That's helping me like think and process through. All right, what's really going on? Like I'm coming off angry. I may not think that or feel that I am, but they're
Right.
saying that. And so like I have to stop in that moment and think about all the things. And each time that I've been able to actually express like, hey, this is like it's just it's a weight that's lifted. And I think it also tells my wife sometimes it's like I'm not the source of the problem. But the way you're acting right now is making me feel like I'm the reason why you're angry. And I ain't did nothing. So I need you to figure it out. Um,
Right. I
and
ain't
so
did
I
nothing.
think that,
I ain't
yeah,
did nothing.
it's always been beneficial for her and for me because
Yeah.
it helps me to see the ways that like I'm attacking her and the others around me for something that they didn't even do. And,
Right.
and allowing me the opportunity to really deal with what's actually going on and
Right.
to be real about that. Like, hey, this is what's happening. Like you said, like finances, like, hey, we got 4 kids. There's so much going on. And, you know, I just want to make sure that there's food on the table, the lights are still on, the kids got uniforms, you know, and all the things happening. And so I've been frustrated about having to pay all these different things today. And, you know, just over the day, it's built up, and other things have happened. So I'm sorry, you know, and I think there's just a level of intimacy and closeness that we've been able to have as I've apologized for things that I've, you know, pretty much wrongly put on her, or
Yeah.
wrongly responded. So I think those are some ways that kind of comes out, or I've seen that exist in my life personally. But I'll be honest, bro, like it's still one of those things. Like my dad didn't and sometimes struggles with this idea of like expressing how he feels. And a lot of times it's just like, I'm good. And, you know, that can be good for so long. And I realize that's what I do too. Like, I'm like, I'm good. And my wife, like, nah, you not.
No. you
Good.
just
You need
you're
to take
not.
time. You need to get away, spend some time with the
Right.
Lord, let the
Right.
Spirit reveal and convict. Spend some time
Hey.
with some friends. Let them. Hey, that's another thing. Like, you know, not only does your spouse do a good job of telling you who you are and what's going on, you
Mhm.
got other people, friends that love you that can help. And I think those things have been helpful for me, and it's allowed me to come back to our marriage and to apologize or to change and to say like, hey, look, what was happening before, you know, I realized like that was wrong. And there was these
Right.
things that were happening that I didn't, you know, understand because this was how I was brought up. It's just, bro, brownies. You want brownie points, start working and changing and adjusting. You just get them. Even if it's like, I just did wrong,
Yeah.
or the way I responded was wrong. Come
Yeah.
back behind that and be like truly repentant and
Right.
sorry with some
Right.
change action. I don't know what to say,
Round
brothers.
the points.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's there.
So one thing that he said, fellas, like if you have trouble with expressing your feelings, and really kind of just not even expressing them, but acknowledging them, an exercise in the book. If you purchase the book, man, it tells you, kind of gives you kind of a rundown of like a process of your day, like what made you upset, what made you happy, what made you whatever. And this is something that we've done. My wife just naturally has done with my daughter to help her express like her feelings. Like she'll ask the question, bless you. She'll ask the question like, "What made you happy today?" Okay, well, this made me happy. Well, what made you sad today? What made you scared today? You know, what made you nervous? And just kind of, we just run through the feelings. So this idea of, as you go through your day, somebody cuts you off, you want to cuss them out, you felt anger and frustration at that moment, like it's okay to write that down and talk about it with your wife later on. Especially if she's asking you like, yo, like how was your day? Don't just be like, ah man, it was good. Like she really wants
Mhm.
to know, like, how was your day? How did you feel? Most ladies, according to what Dr. Chapman is saying, they want to know how did you feel today, not
Yeah.
what did you do today. Like I know you went to work, that's obvious, duh, right? But like,
Yeah.
how did you feel? Like what happened at work? What frustrated you at work? What
Yeah.
made you happy at work? What made you excited? Like what kind of lunch did you eat? Like was that fun? Was it good? Was it nasty? Like
Yeah.
it's stuff like that that they just want to know, just like about your life. I mean, she's your wife, for
Yeah.
heaven's sakes. Like,
Yeah.
why can't she know all of the feelings that you may feel? And I know that there's a sense of sometimes that you want to protect your wife, or you don't want to seem like you don't have it all together. But I've always, almost every time where I felt like I had to protect her, because I don't want her to think that, this thing's gonna fall apart. I'm just, oh, I don't want to. But anytime I've expressed my fears or concerns about something that involved the whole family, man, it became more of this, yo, let's just figure this out together then. Let's
Yeah.
just do this together. Like
Yeah.
I'm scared too. Like I don't know how this is gonna work out, but let's trust God. Let's trust that He's gonna bring us through. And we know that if everything goes to hell in a handbasket, we got
Yeah.
each other, and
Yeah.
that's gonna be fine, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing, man, that I've learned about sharing my feelings with my
Mm.
wife. That it's gonna be good.
It's
It's
gonna be
gonna be good,
good,
man. It's
bro.
always gonna benefit you, man. So
Yeah.
anything
Those
else,
little
man,
things
as
are
we
gonna
as
look.
we get ready to land the plane, what else we got? You got anything
Yeah.
else?
I mean, I think that's good. I mean, the last thought that I had was that those little things that we think are little and unimportant, or don't really do anything, like sharing how we feel, they aren't little to our spouse. And so the moment we kind of get outside of that thought of like, this just really don't seem that important. It might not seem important to you, but it is a detail or something that your wife wants to know about you. So get better at it. It might seem small, share it. I'm sure it's going to promote and bring out more intimacy. So that was really it, bro. You hit it spot on that one.
Praise the Lord, man. And so next time we meet, we're gonna be talking about we talked about learning how to talk today. We talked about um your feelings and writing that out. Man, get that book. I'm telling you, the link, if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the description. You get that book, you can get it digitally, you can get a physical copy, and I think there's even I think there's a workbook. I realized that today. I don't think we went through the
Yeah,
workbook back in the day, but it's
yeah,
actually we probably did. I think we did. But
yeah,
there's a workbook that's available that's separate from the book that can help you process through this stuff, man. That might be something we dive into and
man.
review on one of the things, man. But
I'm with it.
yeah, so next time we'll talk about ways of communicating, right? We'll talk about what they call the Dead Sea versus the babbling brook, right? Are
Mm,
you a Volt when it comes to a conversation, or are you just talking too much? I know for me, I'm probably tempted to talk too much. And then quality activities. We touched on this a little bit earlier. It's different between that quality time and quality activities where you're actually doing things together, like you're walking together, exercising, and different things like that. So we'll talk about that next time, man. But other than that, man, y'all make sure if you're on YouTube that you are subscribed to the channel. We've been putting out a
yes,
lot of shorts and different things out there. Make sure you're sharing this with men, man, who just need to honor God every single part of their lives. And man, you got anything else before we close?
Hey, this is making me a better husband in real time. So I know we've read through it before. In real time, I'm like, hey, this is it. So if you're watching this and you're saying, should I read? Should I check this out? Should
Yeah,
I click that link and get that book? You need to. So go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, and same thing here, man. Like I said, we working on 14 years of marriage, man. And this book, reading through this book again, is
Hmm.
still challenging me to be like, yo, you need to continue to do good, continue to do better. You've never arrived, right? There's always something that you can work on and get
Yeah.
better, man, and make that relationship and that marriage and even your family connections with your kids and stuff like that better, man. So yeah, thank y'all for tuning in to this episode of the Men to Men podcast. We'll holler at you on the next one. Peace.